Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. In this video, I want to do a presentation. The topic of my presentation is about racism in Indonesia. So first, I want to introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Aditya Bhakti Darmawan. I am a student from the Department of Civil Engineering, Andalas University. Next, we have main points. This main point is I divided by 4 according to my topic so that I have an easier time to explain it. So first, what is racism? We have to know what is racism before we go deeper into racism in Indonesia. So, racism in general meanings is a notion that the race itself is the highest race than the other races. Or I can simplify it by saying that some certain race think they are superior compared to the other race, usually associated with the notion of ethnicity, religion, race, custom, class, or physical characteristic of a person. And to take note about racism, because some certain individual or community feel they are superior than the others, they tend to get harassed to the inferior, quote by quote, race. Some of racism is even in the form of criminalism, or even worse, there are a genocide because of racism. Okay, next is our point number 2. What is the origin of racism in Indonesia? So basically, racism in Indonesia is an idea that came from the colonial past during the colonial era in Indonesia. So one of the example of this is a hatred of Indonesian people, some Indonesian people to Chinese community. And if we take a look back, it is actually an idea that was constructed by Netherlands or Dutch and Japanese people at that time. But if we elaborate this, actually even on Dutch or Netherlands side, we know that they are invade Indonesia. They are the one who colonized Indonesia. So at that time, they just want to ruining the harmony of the community. And for Japanese people, they are hatred toward Chinese community because at that time there are king on Java island. The king will usually put Chinese people to do the tax collector. That is like a common thing that happened to empire on Japanese island. And because the Japanese citizen or Japanese people at that time can attack they can attack quote by quote the king itself. So instead their hatred goes toward the Chinese community, which is with Dutch or Netherlands getting involved, or they are feeling the fire of Japanese people hatred. It led to one of the bloody tragedy in our history, which is the tragedy of Java War. On the right, we can see there is an illustration of the Java War. In Java War, actually, in the bigger picture of this war, is actually about Chinese rebellion and Javanese people that fight against Dutch, fights against Netherlands. But one of the starting point of the Java War itself is actually the hatred of Javanese people toward Chinese community. The other thing of the Chinese community suffer is the fact that after our independent, Indonesia have another tragedy, that is G30 SPKI. On that time, Chinese, as land of Chinese community, they are become one of the biggest communist country. So it's there's some suspicious about actually China itself is get involved in this tragedy, G30 SPKI. So it's like make the hatred of Indonesian people toward Chinese community is stronger. The other example that I can picture is the genocide of Yahudi community by Nazi. This is happened because of racism. Even though the tragedy of Yahudi people is not directly have a relation to event that is happened in Indonesia, but still we can take a look at this and we can assume that racism growing really strong when World War II happened. So we can say that racism is from the outside. It comes from the outside, but yeah, even though the origin, we can say the origin is from the outside teaching, but still Indonesia give time and place to racism to growing. Mostly it because of the influence of outside country and Indonesia, but yeah, Indonesia still give time and place for racism itself to grow. And continue to number 3, our main point number 3, is racism still growing in Indonesia? The short answer will be yes. Racism in Indonesia is still a big problem. But in Indonesia, racism is not really visible because they carry out racism secretly. But I think this is because the fact that in Indonesia, we have our foundation, our country foundation is Pancasila and Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, one of that. So Pancasila itself, if you take a look at its point, its meaning, Pancasila is like an anti-racist that just make this kind of thing is can be, but what I mean by this kind of thing is the racism things, they just can do it openly because they will be really ashamed to the community because how the foundation of our country is anti-racist. In Indonesia, Pancasila is really big deal to pressing racism in Indonesia, but still Pancasila itself can eradicate them. So we have to do another thing to assist the foundation of our country to eradicate racism in Indonesia. The four main point is relation of racism, government, and society. Racism in Indonesia nowadays is usually related to Papua, or maybe we can say mostly. Because of that, we have to aware that racism is a problem for Indonesia itself, not just for Papua. Because I see a lot of people think it's just a Papua problem. They don't really care of this. If some racist thing happened to Papua, people just feel like it's a Papua problem. No, it's our problem. It's a national problem for Indonesia. And the government is, in my opinion, not really paying attention to this matter that much. But given the thing that's happened, because our country is still a developing country, so we don't really we have so many things to do to stabilize for our country to still running, to still continue move forward. So yeah, our country have so many in their hand to handle. So they just stagnant in some place. Relation of society, we can help government to reduce racism. The easiest way to do is appreciate the others ethnic, the other race, the other religion. That is how society. So basically, society and government have to work together. It's not just blaming the government, because a lot of what I see, the society the citizen just blaming the government of their incompetencies, but the society itself doesn't give any attention to that matter. The citizen had to have a concern of the racism itself, not just in one particular cases, because a lot of what I see, they just care to the racism problem when someone they know getting involved by, say their children or their brother or their friend are getting involved to racism case. At that time they are pay attention to the racism, but not to the racism itself. So they just have a concern when it just someone they knew are involved on that. Now we come to the conclusion. The conclusion that I can take of this matter is our country is not really pay attention to the this matter, but like what I said before, our country have so many, it's still a developing country, so they put racism in lower priority. The other reason for it, because the fact that racism in Indonesia, the case is carried out silently, and it just feel like it's not really a big deal. Of course, it's actually a big problem, but they are it's just like maybe there's a lot other thing that happen, and it's more a big deal than the racism case that happened in Indonesia. Sooner or later, racism will be the one of the biggest obstacle to our country. The other, and it will become one of the things that destroying our country harmony and ruin the integrity of Indonesia itself. So yeah, it's better for Indonesia to eradicate the racism before the racism itself eradicate Indonesia. Okay, that's the end of my topic. I hope what I say regarding this thing can be somewhat advantage to you, or to you, the one who watching, or somewhat useful information. And finally, my name is Muhammad Tiabati Dermawan. I thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I close this video and I'm saying Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.